subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Good morning.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Well, hope we don't get copyright for that one. I hadn't intended that to follow through, but I forgot to de-check the sound clip. Tony Caravan with you for another edition of the morning show. I've lost count on how many of these darn things I've actually done. So it's hard to say at this point, this juncture. But it's been a lot of fun along the way, that's for sure. And we're going to do it as long as we can. I have some images today that I want to put forward that have to do with things we've talked about in the past several shows. And as we shed some light on these beauties, you can see that. I've got my image very small right now because I'm testing that. Yeah, I'm testing things out. I get such a different viewpoint when I do this myself. So it's hard for me. I mean, because I realize when I watch this on my TV upstairs, that's how I watch YouTube on TV. Because as I said 1,000 times, I got rid of the cable, and I used to have DirecTV. They still haunt me and all that stuff. I've also turned down the volume because I was noticing there was a clicking, like when it was peaking, it was clicking. But according to my VU meters, for those who understand audio and radio, I haven't been hitting the peaks. So I don't know if it's this microphone or what the deal is, but yeah, I'm going to try to keep away from it. This is the mic. Well, you can't see the microphone. Well, I could tilt down to it. I think. Can you see that? Where's that mic? Why isn't that microphone showing? There it is. You can see just the top of it here. I can only tilt the computer down so far. So here's a new, in the interest of show and tell, this is one of the latest things I got. I got my address on there, and my name. Well, whatever. This looks like some kind of official document. They've got the clip on the side. And you tear it open. And you pull it out. And there's some kind of Capital One premium platinum cardboard Visa card. And it's got, as I said, I showed one of these yesterday, it's got your approval number on there. So all you're really supposed to have to do is like call or use a barcode. You can choose all these beautiful various colors for your card. A card that fits your lifestyle. Now, this one's interesting. The interest rates, they must be really desperate. Look at the interest rate on this one. This has gone down to 23%. So, I showed you previously they were up to 36%. And then yesterday's was like 29. And so now this is, but this isn't Capital One. This is Credit One. Total credit line up to $2,000. And let's see what they're doing. Annual fee, $75 for the first year. After that, $99 annually. The annual fee will be billed to your account when it is opened and will reduce the amount of credit you initially have. For example, if you are assigned the minimum credit line of $300, your initial credit will only be about $225. So this is what I was trying to say to you. You hit the ground basically in debt, paying 24% interest. Again with that 99, 99, where so you can see that. We can't say 24% interest. We have to say 23.99. But I mean, so in other words, it's give or take 25%, so a quarter of the amount. So yeah, you get this card. Some poor unfortunate gets $300, really only gets $225. And on their first bill, they've got an interest payment on something that they didn't buy because it's a fee. And then every year they charge you $99. And I recall talking to people, who accept these things, and they got all these things, except today, hidden everywhere, all these little subliminal things for you to, do it. But what angers me the most about this, and I try not to get angry about anything, is that it has your acceptance code on there. So again, as I've said before and will probably say again, I mean, I just had one yesterday, and this just came in or showed you one from the day before, and this one was in yesterday's mail. So I'm getting them every day. And just tempting some porch thief, right? These people that steal things off people's porches now. Caffeine. Anyway, on the screen, you see these 4 girls. And this is kind of a throwback to the hippie, the times gone by, I mean, the picture could have been taken fairly recently. It's possible. But, to me, it's reminiscent of like girls I grew up with, smiles on her face, fun. Obviously, the classic kegger cup, college, happy, nobody with cardboard signs with some magic marker thing on it, saying, I want this, I want that. There's no political discussion going on at this party or this get together. They're just talk. It's 4:18 in the morning. I literally woke up. Well, I woke up around 1, but I just kept laying around in bed until as long as I possibly could. The weather right now outside in the former United States in the eastern part of the mid-Atlantic states, it's 39 degrees, and it's going to get up to 64 degrees today. And so tonight's going to be 50, and Thursday 64 degrees, and the overnight only 48 degrees. But when we look at the
Weekend weather,
Friday daytime 55, but the low is going to go down below freezing to 27. Saturday 45, low of 25, and Sunday 46 high and the low of 25. So enjoy the next 3 days, daytimes while you've got them. And if you get the opportunity to hang out like these girls are, jump on it. I know I'd like to be there. Hello. Hello. Listen to the little chuckle on this guy. So
Let's get this show on the road.
you got it. Let's get this show on the road. Just to tie up some loose ends on this particular slide, which I found while I was putting together my morning show, is this. Well, if you're wondering what that thing below is, that's like a salad. I don't know if you can see that. It's like I make these. It's like a salad from my garden from last year or something. But yeah, last year, this is the Nielsen Consumer Survey. All right. And the market I was basically on was the Johnstown Altoona State College market. They were polling. And I'm in that region because that's how they do it. That's region. So anywhere in that falls under that, DMA. It's like a demographic marking area. But those books still exist, just for people who are curious. The cat's in there doing his thing as usual. This is what the cat looks like. Since we talk about this every morning, I was prepared because I knew he was going to do that. I'll try to lighten this up just so you get a look at him. He's a cute thing. Let's take the shadows out and see if we can brighten him up even a little bit more. Highlights. That's the cat. He's a cute thing. And, but he's determined with that litter box in the morning. I've also wanted to, just doing some, like I call this housekeeping. This is housekeeping more than in many ways. This is my attic. Now, I don't know how well you can see this. I'm looking at it a little bit smaller than it is. But basically, this is like a tongue and groove or a wainscoting, whatever you want to call it, wall in a finished attic. This is a 100-year-old house. And these are beams that instead of, normally when you have an attic, will go up like that. Kind of like that unholy alliance we were talking about yesterday, the corporatocracy, the communist Chinese and the bureaucrats. We might touch that today, but but an attic normally goes like this. But at some point, someone had straightened out the walls with this tongue and groove stuff. And I think it was the original guy. Like I say, this is over 100 years old, this house. And when I was chopping through those boards, I had to, I realized that some of them were very brittle. They're just as old. But the beams in there are in pretty good shape. So, so as you can see, I'm pretty sure you can see this. I'll try to lighten it up again. I don't know if this has to be lightened up too much, though, for you to really see what's going on here. Let's take some shadows out of it. Yeah. So down at the bottom, this is like a 5-gallon drum can, whatever, or plastic can actually, of some kind of white roof sealant. And then on the bottom here are like little tubs from like the Dollar Tree to prevent leaks. And I'm going to enlarge this. And this is just to show you, this isn't the best quality because this picture wasn't high resolution. But you can see, if you look closely, that this would have been the wall where I had to cut open to expose the slanted. This is the actual roof, the inside of the roof. And the reason it's peering white is that what I've done is I can't get to my roof. See, technically, if you include this attic, which was finished off, I don't know, maybe sometime back in the 1930s or something. It's a that's like the third story of my house. So so imagine a roof, and they're going up higher to almost the fourth story. So it's literally impossible for me to get up there. I mean, I'm not happy with heights to begin with. But if it was just maybe even third story, a tall ladder, I could get up there, and I could have just slapped on some tar over top of the roof. Cause like bad winds, this side of the roof, which happens to be the side my bedroom's on, right? So I just like that's the side that leaks. So I just thought about it. And remember, I talked about this before. We have these five senses. And what we don't do, what most people just don't do is that people panic, or they just like, I don't know what to do, or they get one of those credit cards. Of course, fixing a roof now costs $10,000 or more. And I only paid $15,000 for this house. So you have to use your human ingenuity, your creativity. That's the thing we were born with. That's how the people who've come before us built all the great things they did, and how, through the march of time, we've got what we've got. So I labored over this, while I was laying out in the sun in my backyard, but knowing, that it's going to rain, and I had this elaborate thing in my bedroom where I put plastic on the ceiling, tilted into a bucket, so that if water came down, basically a Rube Goldberg type of thing, if water managed to make it through to the second floor where I sleep, from this upstairs attic, it would hit this plastic and then go into the bucket. But you can't have that, and especially in the summertime, you're just going to get mold, mildew, and rot. It's just not what you want to happen. But it was a temporary fix, protection, because in case there was a storm in the middle of the night, what am I supposed to do? This way, I could deal with it in the morning. So, but I'm laying out in the back in my lounge chair in the middle of my garden, soaking up a suntan, and I thought, I'm just going to have to cut open those walls in that upper third floor / attic and try to patch from the inside out, since I can't get on the roof because it's literally like 4 stories up. And you can't, this is this thing where we talk about all this stuff has to do with everything we talk about all the time. Tony Caravan live here, just for the sake of it.
Good morning.
We always ease ourselves into the topic of the day. But so, the idea is that you can't call, because of all of the generation now has gone to college with these ridiculous student debts they have, and half of them are polarized and some kind of caught up in this politics of pop culture and everything, that you don't have a lot of tradespeople. You don't have a lot of people in their 20s and 30s who basically are understand how to do things like this, or even have the will to do it. They just don't want to do it. They want to be a barista or something. I don't know what they want to be, but whatever it is, it's weird. I'm adjusting the mic, so you're going to hear some noises here. Because I'm really trying to get I have very high-end audio equipment, very high-end. And there's no reason whatsoever that I should have a problem with audio at all. In fact, I'm curious if, I know if you talk this down at this part of the microphone, it's very deep. And if you talk up here, it's higher. It's like crisper. But it's just that I guess my voice gets too loud at some points, because this would be more of the DJ type of thing. We're looking at a weather on the overnight. But since I'm just like kind of talking room talking. I just don't want that clicking noise, which I've noticed, and you've noticed it if you watch this every day. Back to the story. So I had that drum that I showed before, which I can show again on this picture. Some kind of white sealant. Let me get rid of this red light. That little red dot was a key light. But what you're seeing here, this thing here, was something I bought because I have a detached garage at the end of my yard. I'm going to show you my yard in a couple of minutes. We talk about these things, and I just don't like to leave anything leave you hanging in case you're like, what was he talking about? What does he mean? It's just like this thing here on the floor. It's like a cat litter box that I got at the Dollar Tree for $1. And since this is an older picture, so now I have the whole floor filled with various things, because when we go back up to the picture, to the repairs here, and what I did was I caulked like within the slats, and then I painted this sealant over, and I even put some wooden, some of these old green, this green wall tongue and groove stuff. I even tried to put those in between. In other words, I tried to patch the roof from the inside out. But we had some rain, of course there was snow on the roof. And then last week or the week before, it rained and I was getting a leak. And the leak actually came all the way down through my Rube Goldberg device into the bucket into my bedroom. But fortunately, it was cold the following week, which means the heat was on, most of the time in the house. And, heat in the winter, it's a dry heat. And so the humidity was way below, was below like in the 20s. And if just a little nugget for those who aren't aware of this, things like mold can't live and grow if the humidity is less than 40%. So if you have a dehumidifier or something like that, and you have a mold problem or something somewhere in a room, basement or something, you want to make sure you got it set at like 39%, to keep that below 40. That way you're not going to get mold and mildew and stuff like that. And likewise, spiders, they need, to talk about, I don't like spiders either, but spiders, they need moisture. And so just keeping your humidity down to about 39% is a good thing. And my humidity, fortunately, for the past 2 weeks or so has been around 20, meaning that even though I had leakage through, my ceiling in my bedroom, it's had ample time to totally just, completely dry out. And it doesn't look like, I'll look right now again while I talk to you for my own sake. There's a possibility of a thunderstorm on Friday, but none of these days look rainy. And a lot of times a thunderstorm, a quick rain will just like slide off because the roof is pretty much like that. I won't have a problem. It's that all day rain that I end up getting leaks on. So I have to put on my list, which is right in front of me right now, actually, caulking, and underline that with an exclamation point. So I'm going to buy some caulking tomorrow. A friend of mine's coming down, and I'll go to the Dollar Tree. They sell caulking for $1. I can't believe the prices of stuff in the Dollar Tree. And I will caulk. I don't know if you can really see, but I'm going to have to caulk in between all of these grooves. There was 1 or 2 particular spots during the rainstorm I went up and I actually saw, but it was leaking in about 5 different spots. But it's all this one area. That's why I opened it up. And I don't really care. It's an attic. It's a 3rd floor. I have on the second floor. I have a big bedroom, and I sleep in the back bedroom because it's quieter. It's further from like the street. It's a little bit smaller room. But I've got a decent sized bed set up in there, and I've got the TV on the wall mounted. I've got a chair, and it's a comfortable space. But the front rooms are nice as a big room. In fact, I think there's three people own this house. The original guy who bought it, maybe built it. I think it might have been it's a Dutch colonial. I think it might have been out of the old Sears and Roebuck catalog. I think I may have talked about that once before. And he, and I whether or not he had a family or not, I think he did. I think he probably had kids living up in that attic because it looked like that room was converted into a living space. Because the floor has like linoleum tile down, which also works to my advantage because with a leaky roof, you've got this solid linoleum floor. So a leak is just going to go to the floor. But I really have no intentions of fixing this roof necessarily, unless I could find, back to what I was trying to say about this generation now. You can't find, one time all you had to do is look through the back of a newspaper or some kind of community rag or something, and you'd see have truck, will haul, handyman, odd jobs, roof repairs, stuff like that. You'd see guys who, had a truck and a ladder and would do, and just would do stuff. And I'd gladly pay a guy like $300, to go up there, with a bucket of, cold tar, as they call it, and a handful of some tiles. And because I know where the areas are, it's like, dude, just you go up there, slap on some of this tar and nail down some tiles on this spot. And even if it only lasts a year or two, do that every couple of years, get me through until, I may or may not, till my house is paid off. And maybe at that point I would put a new roof on it or something like that. Or maybe I would do something, literally put solar panel all at one time, have that, roof ripped up, put down some plywood and some sheathing and stuff. What are they? That zip system they have now, and have that covered over and put like 6 solar panels there, and just go completely off grid just in time before the Agenda 2030 totally kicks in. We got some problems and dealing with like a grid down situation. But I just thought I'd show you that. There's those girls. We'll keep them up today because that's just happiness, and that's a thing to keep in mind, that no matter how bad the perception, that's what I was saying in the title card, this is reality, and this is reality. Okay. This is the reality if you want it. It's like that Lenin line, war is over if you want it. Reality and happiness is a state of mind. And despite these so-called glitches in the matrix, that's a term that people use. And I'm not talking like we're living in the matrix. We live in reality, this is reality. But the idea is nobody's stopping us from being happy, you say. And again, just with where you use human ingenuity, the way I did to patch my roof and will continue to do that, and built my garden. It's like there's certain things I'm not trained at. I had to learn. It's one of the things people do with YouTube is they look at YouTube and someone shares a thing they did, and then another person tries it. And you have to keep that in mind, that, the pursuit of happiness is up to you. And while there are clearly forces, that are trying to, really disrupt our lives in so many ways, I'm going to turn down the don't need all that glare. We still, nothing's stopping these girls from getting together and having some fun, Just stay out of the way of the corporatocracy is all I say. But here's an example here of these are actual carrots from last summer. See if I don't want to brighten too much. But, I planted like these seeds. And you see carrot seeds are like tiniest things in the world, And, I grew these beautiful carrots. I had tons of them. And above the carrot, this is kale. And I had so much kale that, excuse me, I was giving it away in bags to people. Because how much kale can you, how much kale can you eat? It's like I was saying about the lettuce before. But the idea is that you can grow your own food and in a backyard. And I'm going to show you that yard before I get rid of this. This was my yard in the fall. Okay. And you can't tell. Next to me here is this is all open because there's I'll try to get to with the pen here to give you put things in perspective. What happens is what I'm looking at is the reverse of along this side, which is cut out here. You can't really see. This is just an open drive, just a drive parking lot kind of driveway, because over here is like a doctor's office, which is one of the reasons I bought this house. Why it was a great deal for like $15,000, because this is an actual doctor's office. In fact, that's the doctor I go to as my family doctor, so to speak. And the thing about that is that, they don't work on the weekends. They don't work Thursdays. They leave at like 5. So it's like not even having a neighbor over here. And yesterday I actually had a doctor's appointment, a checkup, and all I had to do was walk next door. So, and they're good neighbors, It's a husband and wife doctor. They run this, it's like a whatever. And then on the other side, I do have a neighbor who's like a little bit nosy or whatever, nosy type neighbor. But I've got there's like an 8-foot fence between me and that neighbor. So I don't really have to deal with them. And toward the back where I hang out is a garage that goes even up higher. And so this is a walkway that goes back to my, detached garage. In other words, my house is here up front. And so this is my yard. And so I'll enlarge a little bit here so we can get a better idea. Because I talk about this stuff and people want to see it in perspective. And I don't mind sharing this. So here are 2 apple trees that I literally planted from seed, literally from an apple I ate. And this one here, this one in the background, this one this year, I think I may get some apple blossoms on there. Probably by if not this year, by next year, I should get a couple dozen apples from that. Now this was the fall. And here you can see this little contraption behind here's my so-called Tardis greenhouse. I built this thing. It's like, the size of the Tardis. And I'm able to, I'll put stuff in there in April or so. I'll take stuff out of my back porch, and that way they'll get, gradually acclimated to the sun. And then by May, I'll put them in the ground. And all around here are my various, and covered by this tree, which I have to trim back. This has gotten bigger than I expected. I'm going to trim this tree back, but you can't see. But behind here are some more raised beds. And I'm just working my way up up the yard because I have no, I'm anti yards. And then and back in this, see this door that goes into this garage because I don't have a car anymore because I have no use for it. I can walk to the grocery store, walk to the doctor's, walk to a convenience store, walk to a restaurant, pizza shop, walk to a bar, and get if I have to go somewhere else, I just go with a friend or something. I don't really, when last time I had a car, I found I was only using it like twice a month to go, get a big grocery order. Now I grow most of my stuff in the yard, or to go somewhere to get supplies. I mean, I miss having a car because I can't go and spend time walking down the aisles of like a big box store or something like that, looking for certain hardware things or, something some item or whatever. But like I say, fortunately, at least at this point, I get together with a friend every now and then who wants to do that kind of stuff. So I do it that way. Pardon me if you're new to the channel. This is what I do. Drink caffeine. It's 4:46 in the morning. What would you be doing? I'm going to switch to coffee in the coming weeks, I think. Try that. Maybe some half and half Kona coffee or something like that. But my garage back there is a workshop, and I built a little bar counter there. So it's kind of, I wouldn't call it a complete man cave because my house is pretty much my man cave. I live alone with my cat. So, but this, just to give you an idea, that's all it takes, this thin yard. And the width of this, I don't know if it's deceptive or not. This is only like 19 feet wide. This entire thing, it's like about 19 feet wide, 18, 19 feet wide. So think of your, like, people have a living room, and some living rooms are like 20 feet wide or something like that. So, so it's hard to believe that, I could get such bounty, out of this tiny little place. Like here's another example. And I hope this comes out, visible enough for you to see. This is last year tomatoes and peppers. So let's just look. This is just would be like one day's harvest toward the end of the summer. I've got all these peppers, all these jalapenos and cayenne peppers. Look at all these tomatoes. Here's my backyard. Here's some banana peppers. Look at those things. And then these very expensive, they don't look the greatest on the screen, but those little yellow, well, the cherry, when you think cherry, you think of red, but little yellow cherry tomatoes. I literally get hundreds and hundreds of these. And they're tasty as anything. And you know how expensive they are in a grocery store. And of course, like I say, there's nothing better than your own tomato. And I make my own salsa and stuff like that. So a yard that's like 18 feet wide, it goes back almost 100 feet, though, the property line. But, considering I have that garage and then there's the house, that's the whole property line. It's probably only 50, 60 feet. So, look at so this is how you can live. And this house, like I said, I got for like 15 grand. It's a fixer upper. And I showed you, I'm not lying to you. I got a problem with the roof, but I'll solve it. I'll solve that problem. And it's really, I haven't put much effort into it. I'm not a lazy guy. I'm busy because I'm constantly doing stuff. It's not, but there's some things that and we all do this, I think, not all of us, but I think most of us do. There's certain tasks that we just we like avoid, right? other things we eat, no matter how laborious and even complex and whatever it is, and even you know uh you know stressful or what's the word, physical, laborious they are, we don't mind doing. But there's sometimes these other tasks that are not necessarily physically, laborious, but it's just that we avoid. And that attic and that ceiling. So when that water was dripping down, the only person to blame was me, for not going up there and not caulking and doing what I can do. Because I know I can solve that problem. I could prolong and push back that problem for another year or so until I feel I'm in a position where I have some, like this $1,400 would be the ideal example. If there was some handyman out there that I could call who's be willing to go up 4 stories on a ladder. See, I can't go up on 4 stories on a ladder. I just can't do it. I mean, I don't have any problems now, but I told you I had a couple operations. I had a kidney operation and I had a radical prostatectomy cancer operation. I've survived both. Like I say, knock on wood. But I also was having some problems like with lower blood pressure and stuff. So, I would get not faint, but, I would get that way. So I'm not about to go up 4 feet or 4 stories on a ladder. And plus, the roof is a slant like this. So it has to be somebody who's experienced in that kind of stuff to do it. But you can't find anybody that's even willing to, I mean, I do my own drywall, which nobody likes to do drywall. But I mean, I expanded my own, my upstairs bathroom. When I first moved in, the bathroom was it's just too thin. And so what I did is, the reason I'm in the back room, one of the other reasons the back room is a little bit smaller is that I wanted to put they just had a sink on the wall. Did you ever see those things where the sink's just connected to the wall? So I wanted to put in a legitimate, classic vanity or whatever you call it with built-in sink thing, just a normal bathroom. In fact, there's a bath and a paint store catty corner from where I live. I mean, it's a joke. I literally, with the guy from the store, we just carried the thing over, but I only paid $99 for it. And they have a plumbing service and they installed, they did the pipe work for me. But I opened up the wall between this thinner bathroom into the bedroom and kind of made a, just moved it back enough to set in this vanity. And the way the inset worked, then it was like it was protruding into the other back bedroom. And so in that other area, I put like a shelf area, and that's where I have my TV, and then I have a shelf, and I have like my stereo receiver and some other things on top of that. It actually could be used as a computer desk area if I wanted to. Human ingenuity, but I do that kind of stuff myself. But yeah, I'm no roofer. But look at that plenty. That's from one guy's yard. And that was like one day's haul. When you start harvesting things. I had so many peppers this year. It's ridiculous. I still have them. I put them in the refrigerator in like mason jars with they call it brine, like salt water. And some of the other ones I took, I put like vinegar, or how you get pickled. Somebody gave me a jar of pickled, what was it? Pickled peppers. I mean, they're peppers. I'm just trying to think of the name of the peppers. Too early in the morning for my brain to function. But I saved that juice, because it's all half juice. And so I put my own peppers in that jar, because that's those in there, and they're in good shape. I could pull one out now, and they pulled out of the garden last August or something. right? And now I'm getting into the new season. In fact, I've got to, I'll end up, I don't know if I'll throw them away, but I've got to give those things away or get rid of them. So what do you do with food on your own? Well, here's an example. Like a meal I would make that would be healthy. And I want to, I'm going to spend a little time on this and then, just talk a little bit. But that round thing you can see in the picture here, and you can't tell with the contrast, but there's like 2 slices of like cheese on there, like one slice of cheese cut in half on one side. And so that's a wrap. You can buy those wraps. Like I said, I think you get 10 of them, generic brand for $1.29 or something like that. And of course, on this fresh tomatoes from my garden, sliced up kale, sliced up bell peppers, onion, and chopped garlic. All right. And, and things that would have been store bought would be like turmeric and black pepper. Always use black pepper with turmeric. That's how it gives you the health benefits. And behind you, well, there's some mayonnaise here you can't see, but there's also honey and extra virgin olive oil. And if you want a good, healthy meal that just doesn't take long to prepare, but it's good for you, really good for you, like good for the immune system, good for your health in general, is just take a wrap, slice a couple slices of tomato, put some kale in there. Nothing's healthier than kale. Kale's like really, really a healthy green. All right. Red bell peppers are high in vitamin C and the healthiest peppers. Onions also have antimicrobial things, I mean, it may give you bad breath, but the thing that's giving you bad breath, it's like garlic, gives you garlic breath or something. But the thing that's doing that are the very things that are basically good for you. All right. Are antiviral and, antibacterial. Well, anyway, take a wrap, put on some cheese, little slap of mayo or olive oil. Throw on a couple tomatoes, kale, and some chopped garlic. You let the garlic sit for a couple of minutes. It lets that allicin, that chemical that's really the thing it's like a drug. It's a wonder drug. It's a really healthy thing for you. Sprinkle on some turmeric and black pepper, and then slap on some extra virgin olive oil. And if you like Italian flavor, you could sprinkle on some, I actually grow it, oregano. If you don't like that kind of stuff, put on parsley. And I grow parsley too. Those things grow like bushes. You can't imagine. And they're like biannuals. So they'll just come up the next year, I also grow cilantro too. So whatever your herb is. And if the garlic and onion are a little too pungent for you, for me, I'm kind of used to it. And the mayo is usually enough to neutralize the garlic, from being overpowering. But if you pour a little bit of pure honey, and make sure it's pure honey, you got to do your due diligence. I use this Gunter's honey, and I checked out and found out that Gunter's are beekeepers and they do have a farm. And so that they sell this stuff, that it's actual honey from bees. Because you have to watch the FDA. I've talked about this before. The FDA lies. I mean, I don't know what else to say. They let the Food and Drug Administration, just like we know these drugs, we see drugs advertised on TV that are approved by the FDA. And then suddenly a year or two later, there's these commercials from lawyers saying, if you took this drug, there's a class action suit, you can get money because if a loved one died or you did something to you. And it's the same with foods and other things that they take off the market. It's like that powder, that was giving people cancer and all this other stuff. So, do your due diligence on that, because the FDA allows companies to put the word pure on the back, even if it's not honey, if it's like, some kind of corn, high fructose corn syrup or something, whatever, because they put that in just about everything. But anyway, honey on garlic is a good way to neutralize it, and it, and honey is is a wonder drug too. So what I've come to do is try to, and the reason I'm showing you this is not only do I grow food, but I try to grow or things that I do buy, like I will buy the extra virgin olive oil first cold pressed, and make sure it comes from a destination it's real. See, because that's another place where the FDA screws you over or doesn't specify. You really don't want olive oil from Tunisia and some of these other places, because you don't know, some of those places use like older olives from the previous year's harvest or leftover olives. There could be rancidity in there, but that's what when they say they process something, they process out, and so it doesn't have some rancid odor or something like that. But what you're doing is you're not getting the healing effects of olive oil. Like olive oil is good for your veins, good for your heart. Garlic is good for your heart, good for your veins, your blood flow. Like I say, red bell peppers are, rich in vitamin C, any dark red things. Tomatoes, fresh tomatoes, never refrigerate a tomato, by the way. A tomato, because tomato has less the chemicals, the enzymes, chemicals, vitamins you get out of a tomato, they get destroyed when it gets cold. So you want it to be at room temperature, or actually heating a tomato is not that bad. And of course, garlic, turmeric. Turmeric needs to have black pepper with it. Some people say chili pepper, but it needs to have a pepper with it in order for that. And that's the same thing. So what I'm saying is, this little thing that I have on the screen, which is, believe me, you put those ingredients in, wrap that thing, roll that thing up like a wrap, like, you're that's like medicine, but it is a flavor explosion in your mouth. I mean, fresh garden tomatoes and mayo, there's nothing like it. So that's what I do, and that's what I'm looking forward to. And I'll take you along this summer in the garden and show you that kind of stuff. And then I just wanted to touch on this because, this just seems to still be going on, and these are these items that they hoarded, right? Particularly last year. Excuse me. I'm finding the Charmin toilet paper at my local grocery store. The price is $8 now for that pack. And not nine rolls, 6. And they call it mega, like, such and such equals whatever, but it's not. It's a roll of toilet paper. And the same goes with, Lysol. Sometimes I've been able to buy it. Sometimes I can't. Dial antibacterial soap. Man, once in a blue moon, you're able. Yesterday I was able to pick up one of those, but for the past couple of weeks, the shelf's been empty. And 70% alcohol. I have one. I fortunately have that. That's starting to show up. It's always good to have that there to sterilize things for cups. For cuts and bruises, or or whatever. But I would always, it seems like this hoarding, it's either the availability is limited, or when it's available, the prices have shot sky high, which is, I don't know, it's price gouging. And does anyone care? No. That's what I'm saying. The less dependent you are, forget it, but the government's not going to save you. You need to take care of yourself. And pickled eggs. I just thought A friend of mine really likes these. I make them for, you could get a little tiny can. When you go to the grocery store, there's like the full size, what you call the canned good type of can. And then there's those half size ones. And if you get a generic can of red beets, okay, which you could, depending on whether or not it has the flip top or you have to use a traditional can opener. It's a premium now to get a flip top. But if you buy the small can of red beets, this is just me giving you a tip. Yesterday, I told you how to make a coconut cream pie. We'll get into some more serious things in the second hour. Yeah, I'm going 2 hours probably. But just for a little healthy snack, something that could last you for a week or so. You get some white vinegar, a little container of white vinegar, which you could buy for like under $1, 88 cents, $1. They're on sale all the time. Never pay more than just white vinegar, regular generic white vinegar. Okay. You get a can of red beets, the small can of red beets, generic store brand can for 59 cents, 49 cents. I mean, these things don't cost much money at all. And you get buy one of those, a half dozen eggs, and look for when they're on sale. Sometimes you can get like a half dozen eggs for 49 cents, 69 cents, or something like that. So like add it up, we're talking less than $2, or around that price. And all you do is you get yourself some kind of plastic container, reuse something you bought something in, and pour in some vinegar, empty the can of the red beets in there, boil your eggs on the stove, deshell them. The best way to do that is you boil your eggs, then put them in the sink and run ice cold water on them, drain it off, and that the shock from the heat to the thing makes the shell come off real easy. You just like roll them, and you could usually with your thumb peel off. You feel that there's like an inner film of some kind, and you could like pretty much get off everything. You throw those in there and then just top off the top with some garlic. Sometimes I'll put in some salt and pepper, and then seal it up, put it in the refrigerator. And those things will last. You get like 2 weeks out of that, definitely over a week or so. And if you enjoy something like that, you can have a red beet egg every day for 6 days, just a little tip, for those who, because I know there's a lot of people that just don't know how to do basic cooking and preparing of foods. And, technically a pickled egg, the more vinegar you put in there, like if you go into bars, you used to go into bars and they used to have them not even refrigerated. You'd see these eggs at the back of the bar, right? Or the other thing was like hot bologna. They'd have these like things of bologna that they would pickle, and this will store actually longer than you think. And if there was a power failure or something like that, extended power failure, and eggs are high in protein, and beets are very good for you. And beets themselves. So something like that actually would last you for several weeks. And of course, this is just a bunch of garlic cloves, just to stress the idea that every house should have garlic, and garlic keeps a long time. All right. So get garlic and learn the properties of garlic, why it's good for you. Learn how to eat it, incorporate it in your meals. I eat garlic daily. I find ways. I put it on the idea is, though, with a lot of the things that are the most nutritious, it includes broccoli. People buy these broccoli steam packs and they steam the stuff to death. But the thing is, broccoli is very healthy. It even has anti-cancer qualities to it, But the idea is if you steam it for more than 2 or 3 minutes, you're steaming out those qualities from it. So you'll get the flavor of it and it tastes good. And it's not like it's bad for you. And there's something you might get. But if you won't, so when I make a soup or something, I'll make the soup, and you know, you can cook the soup for, you know, for a considerable amount of time, especially if you get carrots or potatoes in there, till all that stuff softens up and you create that soup and the broth. And you know, the way you make a noodle soup, by the way, just buy spaghetti or angel hair pasta, but even regular spaghetti, and you just break it up into smaller noodles. And that's how you make a homemade chicken noodle soup, you know, with the, you know, can of broth, some, you know, and just assorted vegetables. But what I'll do is right before we'll have chopped the garlic up about 5 minutes before I figure the soup's done, and I'll have the broccoli ready. And what I'll do is as soon as I take the soup off the flame of a gas stove, I'll top the broccoli on the top of the soup, and I'll put the garlic on the top of the soup, and maybe I'll put some, just you know, drizzle a little bit of honey on top of the garlic, and then I'll get my spoon, sit down with my soup. I eat my soup right. Since I live alone, I eat my soup right out of the thing I cook it in. You know what I mean? It's less to clean up. All I got to clean up is a spoon and the pot that I made the soup in. I have a smaller, you know, pot. And I'll eat, the first things I'll eat will be a spoonful of, you know, a piece of the chopped garlic and piece of broccoli with a little broth, you know, and that's how I begin my meal. So I'm getting all of the, you know, all of the good stuff out of the garlic and broccoli in me, right? First, with the you know, some of the broth from the soup that I made, and then I'll finish off the soup as a noodle thing. But you know, broccoli, if you get the thick stem broccoli, that's the easiest to peel, and I find that to be the best. Now, what you don't what you don't want to do. This is an ice cream called pistachio ice, or called spumani, and the green is actually pistachio. But it's very hard to find. Sometimes you find this kind of ice cream where there's three colors, and it's vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. I'm not even a big strawberry fan. I never was a big strawberry type person. Even the chocolate is okay, but you know. But if you ever see this stuff where you see something called spumani and it's got pistachio, boy, that's a good flavor. Of course, that allowed me to put on weight this past winter and lockdown. You know, I don't know. I mean, television makes you look a little bit, you know, more. But yeah, I gained about 15 pounds this past winter. But that's a pretty good thing. And this is another thing that I just wanted to show and demonstrate, that this is the title of my book, Codex. All right. And as you can see in the final analysis, you know, I've got all kinds of like ancient stuff and different things came into the graphic. But this is the older version of Photoshop. And so, you know, if you know Adobe Photoshop, this works on the computer that I use over here for my sound effects. And I intentionally keep this, you know, this thing off of the, you know, off the internet, because I don't want Adobe coming in and messing with me. But, you know, I only have like a couple of gigs of RAM in this old computer. This is an old G5 computer. I'm pointing to this side, the side where the you know, where you're fired, where the sound effects come from. But these programs work beautifully there. And I'm just hoping I'm just hoping that computer lasts. I try to treat it, I only turn it on in the morning for a very short period of time. So I'm hoping I can get some years out of that. But I just wanted to show you because we've talked about this in another store. So today's, this first hour of the show is just me. Like I've referred to this before, is I don't like to leave you hanging. So if you haven't, this first time you've ever watched this show, if you go back and say, well, this guy's a character, what, who is he? And he's interesting. And you look at yesterday's show or the show before. Yesterday's was a good show. I want to get into some of the things we talked about yesterday a little bit, refine that. But like I said, I don't like to leave people hanging. And these are all things that were touched on in previous shows over the last couple of weeks. And I just wanted to, bring them to you because it's only fair. And again, growth. Grow your own food. It's so easy. Carrots. They do take the whole summer to kind of mature like this. But, same with potatoes. And every year, like potatoes come up that I forget. They call them volunteers, people who are into this, because, they're like tomato plants and potato plants that just end up coming halfway through the summer. You start seeing this thing that you didn't even plant, but somehow something was left in the ground. And because seeds are so tiny, and even in potatoes, it's not so much the potato. You plant like a half a potato that has this little nodule thing on it. And that's how you make a thing. My cat is kicking up a fur ball or something. Are you doing that on the rug? Cats. Om. Om. Oh boy. I've got to deal with that. And I have to remember that when this video's over, I'm going to have to write a note. Clean up cat. In case I get sidetracked and I want to be walking on a fur ball or something like that. Sorry if that grosses you out, but anybody who has a cat understands that. So I think I'm going to keep the girls up for now, and and talk about as an example of just because yesterday there's a couple of ways of taking yesterday's video, and it could be taken as a downer, by exposing this you don't know what you don't know type of idea. And everything with this corporatocracy. And when I say former United States, and that Western civilization is dead, and this country's turning into territories with authoritarian governors, and we have irreconcilable differences among each other on so many different levels. But that doesn't mean that meaning looking at happy people, all right, that's something that means our lives have to become miserable, right? We're not the ones out there with some kind of sign saying, I want this, I want that. Instead, I hope that the people that watch this show, that we're more like this, and we're able to find happiness with ourselves. This is being social, okay? That's not so, social media is the complete opposite of what you're seeing here. These four girls, this is social, being social. All right. And that's important. I was at my doctor's yesterday, and I've known the guy for, as long as I've been here, for 6 years or so. And I used to talk to him before he was my doctor, because I still had a doctor from the town where I moved from, but I realized I wasn't about, I just wanted a local guy, and the guy was next door. And I used to talk to him when he would pull up. Like I said, there's a parking lot next to my house in between where his doctor's office is. And I'd always be out in the yard doing stuff, and he'd pull up, and we used to talk over my fence a little bit. I realized he was had a good head on his shoulders. And we did that even a year before I decided to say, hey, do you have an opening? You want to take in a new patient? They also draw blood over there, which, if you're younger, you don't understand that. But it's like when you get older, you basically want to have a blood test every year just to, because it tells a lot about you. And to get blood work, usually you have to go, have an appointment at the hospital and go sit there. And who wants to go in that a germ infested hospital? So, but he was talking about, at first he was talking about, I mentioned that I didn't feel good a couple of weeks ago, and he said, well, if you would have came in here, I would have sent you for a COVID test, And I'm like, well, I took my temperature, and all that stuff. And like, when I was over there, they did my blood pressure, and it corresponded with the blood pressure, that I have taken myself here. It was like 124 over 75 or something like that. I mean, that's like totally within what's considered normal blood pressure range, like, totally acceptable for me. And, my heart rate is at a normal rate. But he was talking about the vaccine, and I'm like, he was pushing it. And then, saying, well, when the vaccine becomes available to you, you should get it, and, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I just don't trust the government. There's just too many mixed signals going on out there, and, blah, blah, blah. And, while he tried to sell it in one respect, by the time the end of the conversation was, and, it's not like you have a long meeting these days with the doctor. You're lucky if you talk to them for 15 minutes, however, But I realized that once I started talking about, I wasn't trusting of the government. He's like, well, I don't trust the government either, which is interesting, which I hear a lot from everybody. But once I started saying, I don't know about this mRNA thing. I don't know about this idea of this protein. It's like mass, kind of like getting an impression of these nodules that come out of the virus, out of the actual virus itself, and what, and I don't care how many people have already gotten it, but blah, blah, blah. And then I said, and besides, by the time that it would come to a point, where, in a couple of months, if someone tried to say, hey, you get this thing, I said, by that point, more than half the population will have already been inoculated. And hopefully, there won't be any really ill effects from it for people. But once you have a, even 40% of the population inoculated, but it'd be more like over 50%. And then you have, younger people who don't seem to get the virus, and according to what I hear, don't really shed it either. And then other people who are just downright immune to it. Like, who knows? Maybe I did have it, even though I got the thermometer and my temperature was low when I was feeling bad several weeks ago, and all that stuff. But I mean, people that got it and then built a natural immunity to it, or just are immune to it, then, the thing is gone. And that's why they're already starting to talk about that people should social distance and mask every flu season, because they want to, keep this muzzle thing alive and this social distancing alive. And I guess their goal is to close small businesses in smaller towns. And they don't like this idea that what like people like me are pushing and doing, where we're living, on the outskirts of towns or in smaller towns, or areas, and not buying into these. why would you want to be in New York City right now? I've been watching a series on Netflix. Like I said, I'll get Netflix. I'll get Netflix for a month here or there. And at least fortunately you don't have to sign up for the year. So you can like get it, binge watch something, for a month. And then you could just cancel it. And then if something else comes along, you could you could sign up for it for that month. And then binge watch, a couple of a series or two, and watch a couple of movies. Because really, despite the fact that they have all this stuff on there, there's really nothing to watch. It's like that's why I got rid of television. It's like, yeah, you got 100 some channels to choose from, but it's like that song, there's nothing on, that at least for me, I'm not interested in. And I'm just not a news junkie, and I don't follow these ridiculous sports that have become politicized as well. So, I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? I forget. Netflix. Oh, the series. Oh, it was just everything on there is old. There's they have some newer stuff, but it was an older series. That whenever you see these series that you end up binge watching, you look at them and they were made like, I don't know. You're lucky if it was 5 years ago. Some of them were even longer than that they ended. And there was a scene in New York, and it was a classic. It was an interesting episode because it was classic New York. Remember, I lived in New York, and it turned out one of the guys ended up was once a firefighter, and it ended up at the down at the World Trade like monument, where the waterfall is and all that stuff. And it was like a real New York story, somehow that they weave that particular episode in, because you had those, because it was the cop. It's a show that revolves around some cops and stuff. I'm not going to get into which particular one it is, but it's like, there were firefighters, cops, the New York streets, the scene, but it was like a real classic New York story that, the idea of the beauty of New York. It's just like New York and during the holiday season around Rockefeller Plaza, the way it used to be, not this year where they tried to put up some kind of stick tree or something goofy like that. The glory days of New York, and I was fortunate enough to have lived in New York during New York at its best. And like I say, to me, New Yorkers were some of the most friendliest, nicest people, that I've encountered. And I've been all over the world, and I've lived in many states on the East and West Coast. And I found New Yorkers to be very, very friendly. In fact, as much as people talk about LA as used to talk about LA as like this laid back, type of happy place and stuff, I found New Yorkers to be friendlier than the average person. In other words, than walking down the street in LA, walking down Sunset Boulevard in LA, as opposed to walking down Amsterdam, in New York. I used to live in the Upper West side of New York, around Columbia University, because I worked there. And I found New Yorkers to be, just really good people. And, and I've had friends inviting me over to their family dinners in Brooklyn. And, and it just really, really cool. Like, if you ever saw that original movie with Nick Cage, The Family Man, like where he was, I think it was in a Brooklyn neighborhood where he was, and just how that neighborhood and that sense of community in little areas. And, and that's the New York that I used to know and love. And when you see, this Cuomo, as this authoritarian governor and this de Blasio as this crazed mayor, and what he's done, and then on top of it, the lockdowns and all of this, authoritarian rule and social distancing and closing, the absurdity of what they've done to the restaurants and the small businesses in New York, getting rid of bail, and criminals running free, and all this kind of stuff. It's just not New York. Isn't New York, and that's not to say that I'm sure there aren't still pockets of in certain neighborhoods where it's, people are people. And just like these girls in the picture, you know what I mean? They can't take us and our pursuit of happiness away from us. But generally speaking, that unless you are right now in some neighborhood in Brooklyn or in some particular place in New York, the idea of living in New York and paying a ridiculous premium price, for an apartment and the lifestyle cost of living, I should say, it just doesn't gel. It just doesn't make any logical sense when you could live for a quarter, a sixth, maybe even 1/8 of what you're paying for the premium of living in New York City or DC or like Chicago or LA, all once great cities, all cities that I've spent time in and enjoyed myself in, but that now are just either crime ridden, overpriced, and just not the same as they used to be. But despite all of that, we can still, it's like there's a line from John Kay from Steppenwolf Live, where, it's something I was thinking about it last night, and I forgot to pull it out because I have the song somewhere, but if I play it, I'll get a copyright thing. But he says something in between the song, before the song Monster, which is a very interesting song, which I really would love to play. But if you could, the band Steppenwolf, this is a band from like late 60s, early 70s. And there's an album, Steppenwolf Live. All right. Like a lot of people know Steppenwolf as like Born to Be Wild. And it always used to really bother me because I've been in radio my whole life. Since I was in high school. My first DJ job was when I was a junior or senior in high school. I had a radio show Sunday nights on the in the local cities, a real radio station. Not like some school radio station. I was on the air, and it was a powerhouse that was simulcasting on FM, I think at the time, and the FM was 50,000 watts. It was, it was pretty powerful. But so what I'm trying to get at is that always annoyed me that they would play the radio single of Born to Be Wild and not the Born to Be Wild version that could be found on Steppenwolf Live, because there's like a whole side of an album that's just like, it blows your mind. So if you have if rock and rock music, like good guitar rock, Steppenwolf had like 3 guitars, I believe, on that live album. And if you ever have those moments where you just want to get back and just rock and play air guitar, blast your stereo, that's another beauty about buying a house instead of living into an apartment. I could crank up the music and there's nobody's going to be pounding on the ceiling or the walls saying turn it down, because I'm not connected to anybody, right? I have a standalone house. But I highly recommend you checking out that. I'll just put it in the in the thing, check out Steppenwolf Steppenwolf live, you know. But in the beginning, you know, it's a 2-album set, I think. I'm pretty sure. And in the beginning of this song Monster, which is about America, you know. And it's funny, you know, because back then, you know, this was the anti-war movement type of thing, you know, rock bands, you know, about, you know, sending, you know, people being sent over to Vietnam and, you know, that kind of stuff. And, you know, and it wasn't, it's, you know, it's not so much an anti-war song, but it's like America becoming like this monster. And the monster being, you know, I would almost interpret it, to be quite honest with you. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Welcome to Tony Caravan Live. I'm just another human being, just like you. You know, drink a couple caffeinated beverages, carbonated beverages in the morning. But he says, you know, despite all, it's in between like the two songs leading up to, I think, into the song Monster. Because despite everything that's wrong with this country, it's, you know, we really should, you know, try to do the best things we can, or to, you know, to come together or something like that or whatever. But, you know, the key thing being, despite all the things that are wrong with this country. And, you know, that, you know, it's a good line. And what I'm trying to say is, despite all the things that are wrong, and despite the so-called, the reality of, you know, this irreconcilable differences in the fall of the empire, the former United States and Western civilization. And as much as that eats at people who consider themselves patriots and that sort of thing, you know, or people that believe that they can salvage this, all right? I mean, I feel for you, and I relate to you, and I know what you're saying. But the reality is, it's not going to happen. Irreconcilable difference. That marriage isn't, you know, is over. You know, it's like someone not accepting that, you know, it's hard to accept when something becomes dissolved. You know, even it's like any relationship, you know, I've gone through that in younger years. You know, it's like, you know, you kind of hold on for a while. You don't want to let go. But eventually you do. I mean, unless you know, you go wacko. You know, for your own sake of sanity, eventually reality sets in. It's like that Bill Murray line and whatever that the movie, which was that movie, total blank. But there's a line where he's doing like almost a voiceover. He goes, and then reality set in, right? And that's, you know, so reality has to set in, and you know, reality is, we're dealing with the corporatocracy. That's the rule of the world right now. The US is, you know, the corporatocracy has been slowly taking over for decades and decades. This isn't a new thing. This isn't a 2020 election thing. This isn't about Trump and Biden or Hillary Clinton or Nancy Pelosi or, you know, any of that nonsense. Okay. It's not about MAGA. It's not about that stupid capital thing that they overhyped, you know, or it's not about any of the glamour, the witchcraft glamour of the media that they're trying to put this, you know, this false reality before your eyes. It's not about, you know, the Black Mirror, you know, mirror, mirror on the wall and all that kind of stuff. You know, none of that stuff. All right. Actually, you can see a reflection if you look closely. That's the old Mac. It says Mac OS 9.2, the beauty days, you know. And then, of course, you can see the image of these girls. Look at that doll. But that has nothing to do with anything. Uh, that's just what they're trying to put across to you. So it's almost like somebody who's, what they call them, a glutton for punishment. You decide, like, you decide you want to live in the midst of Chicago with its high crime. You want to go, you want to stay in New York, right? And pay thousands of dollars a month for an apartment, but you've lost, but you can no longer go to your neighborhood store, restaurant, pub. It's like, come on, man. Like, as Dementia Joe says, it just doesn't, you're being a glutton for punishment. Whereas you could come out, to places like where I am and be free. You just, be free, make your life, do whatever you want to. You don't have to grow stuff in your backyard like I do. Um, but you can live very inexpensively without taking away the quality of life or fun. Yesterday I had up for a long time, that whole idea of, let's see if I still have the, I would have to look it up, but I can find it. I believe I have a thing, previous slide. See if I was smart enough to do that. Did I put him in here yesterday? I'm such a goofball sometimes that I don't do the things I should do. Here we go. But it's like, this no fun allowed idea. That's what they're telling you to do in DC, in LA, in New York, in Chicago, in Atlanta, right? Dallas. I mean, all these areas. And there's, the major markets, like I say, I'm a media guy. So when I talk cities, I talk markets, the top 10, top 20 markets, right? Because it's all based on money and media. That's what it's all about. Like I say, they're used car salesmen, people you see on TV. They're just selling ads. The corporatocracy is about money and power and ruling, running things. It's not about saving the world. When they talk about a Green New Deal, they don't care about the planet or people. Big Pharma doesn't want you to be healthy. I went through that yesterday, that list. If they wanted you to be healthy, there wouldn't be, 1.2 million people a year. Just got my YouTube. Well, it took a long time for the YouTube to send up the notification that I was live. But if they cared about you, there wouldn't be 1.2 million people a year in the United States dying of heart-related and cancer problems, cancer diseases. All right. 2 million people die of various causes in the United States every year. And you don't see, like I said yesterday, you don't see that on the side of ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, CNBC, MSNBC, Bloomberg, CNN, Fox. You don't see that on the side of their broadcast every day, or on their Chiron, their little scroll things. These weird, absurd little like lines they put there that are like mind blowers, right? And it's like, to just freak people out, like I had yesterday with, that whole idea, which, why not, just for the sake of it, just to get you completely freaked out, I don't know how that happened. There we go. But it's like, I mean, these are ongoing themes on the show, but that's what they're doing. And they're doing it for money and power. They're not doing it because they care about you. And it's the same with this virus. There's, all these studies have come out. There's a million things they could have done. And as far as I know right now, I think there are 4 treatments. So usually when you have something that is treatable, it's not considered an epidemic or a pandemic anymore. But the question is, why isn't it being treated, and why are they keep hiding this thing? I understand that there are certain things. I'm not going to get into details because, they want to block you if you talk about certain things. But I understand that there are certain courts and judges that have people have had to go through the courts and judges to get approval to take certain treatments, and that they have gotten that approval. And so, and we're heading in that direction. But, these authoritarian governors and these, crazy corporatocracy people that have taken over the government, that's why I say former United States. It's, it's beyond the point of us being divided with irreconcilable differences on many levels, not just political. And it's not red, blue. It's not MAGA versus the left. It's not that. That's part of it, but it's on every kind of level you can imagine. There's infighting within the Democrats, like I said before, AOC and Sanders disagree with, Pelosi and people like that. The parties don't even agree within the Republican Party. They have total disagreements with one another. And then there's disagreements about about the plague and whether or not you should do this or do that. Disagreements on everything. Disagreements on economics. Disagreements on school curriculum, disagreements on whether, there's people that still won't accept that China is one of the biggest threats to the world. Right? Oh, we just have cultural differences with them. Yeah, these guys got gulags and are selling people's organs and have clamped down on freedom in Hong Kong. And basically, if anyone speaks up against the Communist Party in China, they're disappeared. Concentration camps in the in the year 2021. And our president said, "Oh, well, they have cultural differences." Yeah, right. If you would have said a statement like that about those people in the early part of the 21st century or 20th century that were doing similar things, all right? Because remember, hundreds of millions of people have died under communism. And China, the Chinese Communist Party is a continuation. It's Mao may no longer be the guy in charge, but this guy Xi, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, still run that country. So what? They've got a McDonald's or a Kentucky Fried Chicken over there now, and the financiers keep going over there, doing some financial deals. And Apple, has slave labor factories over there with nets on the sides of the building because people try jumping off the top floors of the building to commit suicide because it's basically slave labor to build iPhones. Right? Yeah. You don't hear that reported on the network news, right? So no fun allowed here, okay? That's the policy of of the former United States. But, let me just take that down, because fun is allowed here, but you're in charge of fun. Okay? And so you decide, this is a big country, 320 million, maybe 350 million. We don't really know. They don't count. The way they mess around with the census, it's like the way they do with voting and stuff. Anybody, they ease ease all the the rules about that, so that because they're so they it's all a big game, the Game of Thrones to them, the power trip. So we don't know. My guesstimate is that there's probably 350 million people in the United States. All right, somewhere between 330 and 350 million people. Because there's just people all over the place. And I've lived in the cities, and I've traveled in the inner part of the cities and seen what you would call barrios and slums and ghettos and and areas that people just don't want to talk about. Not to mention in the major cities, just endless rows of tents now on city streets of people. I don't think these people are counted. They don't count that. They don't care. Yeah, I see these politicians. They're all representatives, particularly people in the House and Congress. They're supposed to be representatives of districts, right? And all they're doing is playing politics to enrich themselves. They're all multimillionaires. And yet in their districts, you've just got these, basically their cities are tent cities, and with feces on the I hate to talk that way, but on the streets and stuff like that. And so, like I say, it's not the LA, it's not the San Francisco that I visited and used to want to go to go to the fish markets and these restaurants, and used to have I used to go up there every year this is back in the earlier days, for Apple used to always have its their conventions there, and used to go to Vegas for the computer, I guess CESs. They still have those things. But I used to go up to San Francisco a lot because I lived in LA. It was just a drive, up the coast. But it's not it's not the San Francisco it was. Just like LA is not the LA it was. And New York's not the New York it was, and DC is not the DC it was. Like I said, I lived and worked all these places. And the places I didn't work, I frequented quite often. I've been to Chicago, and I used to go to areas in Chicago that you probably wouldn't want to be caught in now, like side streets where there'd be these great, blues clubs and stuff, and off the beaten path places where there was this classic, place to eat or get some kind of, this is the best, everybody says they got the best, but this is the best Chicago pizza. You got to go there, and they give you these odd instructions to get to it. Or like these clubs, that, where there was blues and bands playing in these places. But, this was many years ago, and it's just not like that now. Now there's like people killed every day, in these areas. So, you can't lament, and I don't want to romanticize about, like people who, the good old days either. I'm not saying that, these are the good old days, like that Carly Simon song, to these girls, if this is happening now, these are the good old days. And that's what you got to keep in mind. And I just wanted to give a little contrast to what I saw yesterday's heavy show, that these can be the good old days, but you've got to accept that it's a different kind of, world we live in. You can't fight the corporatocracy. Politics, government as we know it in the US is gone. The empire has fallen. And holding on, the more time you waste trying to get involved in the cult of personality of political candidates and thinking that you're going to somehow, like that, thing I threw up yesterday with the stack of where one party comes in with a stack of executive orders and wipes out everything the previous one did, and now you're hoping another guy or the same guy's got a different guy's going to come in and with his stack of executive orders and wipe out the things. Meanwhile, the corporatocracy is laughing at everybody because bit by bit they've whittled away all those rights and made government insignificant and irrelevant. And so this unholy alliance that I've talked about, that triangle of where the corporatocracy that rules the world right now, and then the communist Chinese that were trying to take over the world, who are, in an unholy alliance with the corporatocracy, and then the intel agencies over here who have already taken over the government of the U.S. and governments of various other countries. But they're all vying for power, but they're in this unholy alliance for right now, like I explained with the concept of the three robbers that are trying to steal the blood diamonds out of some safe. And you've got the safe cracker, the guy who has the plans to take out the alarm, and the guy who's going to fence the blood diamonds. And each one of them in the back of their mind is they're all allied for the time being to pull off the heist. But the guy who's cracking the safe is thinking he's going to take out the other two guys once he gets the diamonds in his hand. The fence is thinking he's going to take out the guy with the alarm and the guy who cracked the safe once he gets the diamonds in his hand. And the guy who, who planned the caper, who has the plans and took out the alarm, once the safe is open, he's going to get those diamonds, put them in his, duffel bag, and take out the fence and the safe cracker. And that's the unholy alliance of the corporatocracy, the communist Chinese, and the intel agencies. And as I said yesterday several times, nobody's talking about this. That's what's going on. That's the socioeconomic geopolitics of the world as it stands today. Okay? That's reality. Accept that. But that does not mean that you cannot pursue happiness. It just means that you have to diminish your, attachment, your exposure to the corporatocracy as much as possible and live your life out the best you can. It's a big country. And the reason I keep saying there's like 350 million people is that unlike in the days of feudalism and when this kind of stuff happened in the past, at best there were thousands, maybe millions of people. All right. If you go back to the 70s, there was only 200 million people in the United States. In the 20s, there was only like 100 million. Okay. Now it's triple, right? The population is more than trebled. All right. So it's a lot harder to control every living being when you have 350 million people. Okay. And so the idea is they're going to focus. It's like anything else. They're going to focus on the ones that, the easy prey. You see, that's how predators work, and that's what the corporatocracy is. That's what the intel agencies are. That's what the communist Chinese are. All right, they're predators, right? They're that's what the Davos set is. They're predators. All right, the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset. These are predators. All right, Bill Gates is a predator. All right, and so they're gonna take what they need, the easy stuff. Okay, and you don't want to be it's like the term shooting fish in a barrel. You don't want to be if you're in New York, you're fishing a barrel. If you're in Chicago or LA, you're fishing a barrel. And so you don't want to be there. And so it's going to be a long, long time with 350 million people before they get to the outskirts of town and to the country, or to what I say is secondary or tertiary markets. All right. And so the chance of living out a life like this, and even your children and children's children still having that, depending upon any kind of global catastrophe that's, not man-made, right? But is much, you have this reality can be, all right? Just when I say you don't know what you don't know, right? And in effect, excuse me, everything you know is wrong. I stand by that. And you should wear and buy the shirt. Look at the quality of that shirt. And you should also get my book. And you should buy Great Solar Stuff so that you're prepared. But the idea is that, yeah, just live. I mean, here's what's going to happen today with me. Today's hump day, Wednesday. I'm going to finish this. I'll probably go upstairs. I'm down in my front room. I will do the playback of this for a little while. I think the grocery store opens at 7:00. It's 6:01. It's 6:00 now. I'm going to end this within the next couple of minutes. And I'm going to watch some of the playback of it, make sure everything is okay. We'll walk down the grocery store, buy a few things, get some morning cool. It's a nice morning. I think temperature by now, since I started this, well, it's saying it's 36 degrees, which is actually, I find it hard to believe. I think it's got to be warmer than that out there. Because today it's going to go up to 64 degrees and tonight it's going to be 52. I mean, this is like, we're talking serious spring weather for, the next 3 days, 2.5 days. But so anyway, I still got my winter clothes here. So big deal. So I'm going to take a walk down there, buy a couple of odds and ends, breathe in some fresh morning air, come back and, and then watch the rest of this thing because I enjoy this stuff. I do this as much for myself as I do for you. I'll enjoy it. And there's a few other things I'll do, and then I'll fiddle around. Maybe I'll go out in the backyard and, assess my garden, and what inventory of what I really need to do. I need to get some more soil. I'm already mentally planning what I'm going to do with that $1,400 if they ever, how this, what's up with that? Like, why do they keep delaying it? I understand what they claim, like, oh, well, went back to the house because of this and this is that and this. But no, what's behind, the cover story, as they say, it's like, are they going to give us that money or not? Is the Fed holding back? Because really, they have to basically manufacture this money out of thin air. $1.9 trillion is a lot of money. Some game being played with that. Because remember, this first started last summer. And we were promised $2,000 before the 2020 election. Remember Trump was pushing to 2,000 before the 2020 election. So how we got to March 10th and they're still playing games with it, it's, something fishy's going on with that. So I don't know what the story is. I hope we get it because I do need to buy some things for my garden. And I'm going on Great Solar Stuff myself, greatsolarstuff.com. And sorry, girls, time for you to go away. But what I do want to open up is I'm going to go to greatsolarstuff.com and get myself one of them there. Power packs. I used to have one. Like I said, I had one I bought about 12 years ago. And so, these things won't last you forever, but 10 or 12 years is a long time. All right. And, this is a lithium battery. Mine wasn't lithium. So who knows? Maybe it'll last longer. But the idea that you have that possibility, and like I say, you plug these things, you power by solar, you could just plug it into your wall and keep it charged. So anytime the power goes out, you can just grab it and plug stuff in it and charge your phone, charge your laptop, run some small appliances, depending on what, the price. The wattage is based upon the price. So if you just want it for a phone and a laptop, and to run a light or a fan, you could get the cheapest model. That's what I had before, and it works fine, and it'll get you through a couple of days. If you got the solar panel with it, well, indefinitely, you could just keep charging it. Doesn't need full sunlight to charge. So it's a thing about these individual solar panels. Plus, like I said, I have for sale on that site, down, if you scroll to the bottom, a solar panel that on the back of the solar panel itself actually has a USB port on it. So you can just actually get the solar panel and have that, and you could charge your cell phone or laptop direct from the solar panel. You don't even need that other thing if you don't want to. But the other thing's nice because you could plug it, because it literally has sockets. You could plug in a thing. There's a guy on YouTube that's actually has it hooked up to it's kind of funny. He built himself like an off-grid, one of these container type of things. And in there, he actually put in a panel, circuit breaker panel. And he's using one of those things to actually, connect it to his panel. And that's how his things, it's kind of funny, really. But like I said, get my book, listen to my music, listen to the newer stuff on Spotify, or you could listen free on YouTube. You can listen free on Spotify too. The newer stuff's better than the older stuff. Buy something on Great Solar Stuff, get a shirt, and just live a good life. And remember, with all the downer things, excuse me, it doesn't mean your life. You can't live a full, happy life. Really doesn't. It's just a matter of not being a glutton for punishment and putting yourself in a position where you've got, where you're a predator can prey upon you. So thanks for watching. That's what I'm typing right now. And as we end, usually,
Good morning.
have a good morning and all the best. Cheers. Happy Wednesday. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Take care.